What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Savage Rounds with Xavier. This is episode 22. This weekend, we've got UFC Nashville, Sandhagen versus Font. Rob Font stepping in on short notice for Umar Nurmagomedov, so this is taking place at a catch weight of 140 pounds. But regardless, the main event is going to be sick, and there's some really good fights on the main card as well as the prelims. Some really fun matchups and good prospects to look out for. Let's kick off the night. We've got a flyweight prelim of Ode Osbourne versus the debuting Asu Almabayev. Ode Osbourne, 31 years old, 12 and 5, 5'7", 73-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5, with his last fight being a split decision victory over Charles Johnson in February of this year. Asu Almabayev, like I said, debuting, 29 years old, 17-2. 5'4". There were no reach stats for him anywhere. 5-0 in his last 5, and like I said, debuting for him. His last fight was a round 2 submission victory over Kenneth Maningat in Brave CF in November of last year. I wanted to take Ode Osbourne in this fight. He feels like he could be a solid underdog to pick here. The odds may be a little bit closer at this point. I put these odds in a couple days ago, but I feel like I wanted to take Ode. There's a good chance for him on the feet. I think he will be the better striker in this matchup, although Asu does have decent striking, good power for sure, and I do think in the end he'll be able to stay safe on the feet, which is why I ended up picking him. And then the big advantage for Asu will be the wrestling. Ode has some decent takedown defense, but we have seen him be taken down before. And Asu is a very good wrestler, got a lot of submissions on his record as well. And that's where I think he can get it done. On the feet, like I said, that's where I ended up going with Asu in the end because of that grappling advantage I believe he has, and on the feet I do think he's good enough to stay safe. Obviously Ode's got big power and he's a creative striker, so he can catch anyone, but I do think in this matchup Asu will be able to get it done. Bet wise, there's nothing I'm really interested in betting, just because this is kind of a fight where we want to find out about Asu. He is, like I said, debuting, and although he's fought some guys with decent records, there's nobody, I would say, at this high of a level, nobody that's fought this many other good guys. Ode Osbourne's been in the UFC for quite a bit, fought some good guys now, so I think this will be his hardest test, so it'll be good to find out about him. So betting wise, I'm staying away, but pick wise, I'm just gonna edge it to the debuting Asu Almabayev. Next up, we've got Sean Woodson and another debuter, Dennis Bazooka. He's Albanian, so I know I'm saying that wrong. But I say debuter, you can see there down to the right, he does have 2 Contender Series fights, 1-1 on Contender Series. But let's start out with Sean Woodson, 31 years old, 9-1-1, 6'2", 78-inch reach, 3-1-1 in his last 5. His last fight being, I don't think that's right. Let me pull up. Man, I missed a few things, did I? Yeah, no, this is not correct. It's supposed to be his last fight was a draw versus Luis Saldana. That was in August of last year, so don't mind that little graphic that says Jeremiah Wells. That's incorrect. On the other side, Dennis Bazooka. Like I said, I know I'm saying that wrong, but he's 23 years old, 11-2. You know, let me double check on ESPN that I'm not messing stuff up here. 25, 11-2, 5'9", 70-inch reach. I don't know why I messed up on this page, but his last fight, that one is right. He had a round 2 submission victory over Soslan Abanikov in CFFC. This is a fight where it's another short notice jump in. Sean Woodson has had like 4 different opponents in the span of 2 weeks or something. A lot of different opponent changes for him. And you know, Sean Woodson, he's a really good striker. He's super long. And he's got decent snappy punches, good power. And Bazooka, last time on Contender Series, we saw him get that win. He's very well-rounded, pretty solid everywhere, but Dana didn't end up taking him. I don't feel like he was exciting enough. A lot of the time, Dana's looking for a finish, even if you get a dominant win. But I do feel like if Bazooka mixes it up well here, he can get this victory. If he can get in close, which I do think he can on Sean Woodson, I think he'll be able to land some good shots and mix in the wrestling as well. It's another one where I'm not taking it, or I'm not looking at it betting wise, because again, it's a debuter who hasn't fought the best of competition versus someone who's been in the UFC for a little bit, fought a few decent opponents. Yusuf Zalal, Julian Arosa, Luis Saldana. He's fought a few good guys. And so it'll be interesting to see how Bazooka can come in and handle this. Like I said, 1-1 on Contender Series, but pick-wise, I am going to go with him. I think he can mix it up well in this fight and probably get the decision. I'm going to go with decision. And like I said, betting-wise, I'm staying away from this one. Next up, one I'm really excited for. I like this fight a lot. Cody Durden, Jake Hadley. Another one where I do believe it was kind of put together on short notice. Maybe not as short notice as the other two, but I do believe it's relatively short notice. Cody Durden, 32 years old, 15, 4-1, 5'7", 67-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5. His last victory, or his last fight, being a unanimous decision victory over Charles Johnson in April of this year. Jake Hadley, 26 years old, 10-1, 5'7", 70-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5 with a Contender Series win, and 2-1 in the UFC. His last fight being a round 1 KO TKO victory over Malcolm Gordon in March of this year. I remember he ripped some really nice body shots and was able to drop Malcolm Gordon with those. He was hurting him throughout the fight with the body shots. He looked really good in that fight. After, I believe, let me pull it up. I can't remember if he got the Alan Nascimento fight right before that, or if it was the one before that. Yeah, so he had 2 wins. So he was coming off of the Candelario sub, and his UFC debut was that loss to Nascimento. Durden looking really good versus Charles Johnson. Relentless wrestling. I know Charles Johnson took that on short notice. A lot of short notice stuff happening. But, yeah, I think this is going to be a different kind of fight for Cody Durden. He's not going to be able to implement the wrestling like that, and that dominantly, I don't think. He can make it, or Jake Hadley, because obviously Cody Durden's going to shoot here. He's tweeting, talking about how he wants to knock Jake Hadley out, but we know he's going to go out there and maybe strike for a little bit, but the game plan's always to shoot. Jake Hadley, elite jiu-jitsu. Obviously not the best takedown defense, but I do think he can make it tough on the ground. He can look for reverses and sweeps on the ground to try and get on top, or, like I said, just look for submissions and make it tough for Durden from the bottom. I think he'll be able to get up as well, and on the feet. Although Durden is a solid striker himself, I really like Jake Hadley's striking. The boxing is great. He rips to the body really well. He throws big power, and I do think he'll have the striking advantage over Cody Durden here. I do think he will find the finish. I think it'll be a sub, whether it's Cody Durden playing around on the ground looking for a takedown, or they're already down there and Hadley finds it, or if they're on the feet and Jake Hadley's able to hit him with a nice combination, maybe hurt him to the body after doing some good work, or he lands good shots to the head and he's able to wobble him and find the sub. It could be a club and sub type deal, or he just finds the submission on the ground. I do think he finds the finish. However, yeah, that's the pick. Bet-wise, like I said, I do like Jake Hadley in this one. I think this is a good spot for him. The over 2.5 sitting at -125, the under 2.5 sitting at -105. I do think we're going to see that finish. If Cody Durden wins, it's most likely a decision where he's able to keep control time, even with Jake Hadley trying to make it dangerous from the bottom. There is a world where Durden's able to sit on top. But, I just don't think he'll be able to do it for 3 rounds consistently enough to win. So I do like that under for Jake Hadley. I don't know if it's something I'll be betting because it is going to be a close, grinding type fight because of how Durden fights and the pace both these guys fight at. The Hadley money line sitting at minus 205. Regardless if he finds the finish or not, I do think he finds the finish. If he doesn't, I do think he will do enough work over the 3 rounds to get the victory regardless. I've seen a few people throwing him in parlays. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I do think this is going to be, like I said, a grinding fight. Regardless if he finds the finish or not, it's going to be a high-paced, grinding type fight. Hadley inside the distance sitting at plus 120, not bad. That Hadley sub line sitting at plus 225, not looking too bad either. The pick is Jake Hadley, though, for sure. Next up, featherweight bout, we've got Billy Q versus Damon Jackson. Billy Quarantillo, 34 years old, 17-5, 5'10", 70 years old, Jesus, 70-inch reach. 2-3 in his last 5. His last fight being a round 1 KO TKO loss to Edson Barbosa in April of this year. So not too long ago. I guess just under 4 months now. So it's been a decent bit of time, but the knockout was brutal. A brutal knee from Edson Barbosa ended Billy Q's night early back in Kansas City. Damon Jackson, 34 years old as well, 22, 5-1, 5'11", 71-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5. His last fight being a round 2 KO TKO loss versus Dan Ige. That was in January of this year. Dan Ige hit him with a really big, kind of like shovel uppercut type deal. It was a really nice shot. And we've seen Damon Jackson take part in some interesting knockdowns and falls when he gets hurt. The one in PFL and that one, it always looks real rough for him. But in this one, we know Damon Jackson's going to look to try and wrestle here. He's got a lot of submissions. He's a great grappler, and he's decent on the feet. He's got okay power. I'm not too. I do think Billy Q's gonna win. So when I say I'm not too worried, I'm on the Billy Q side. I'm not too worried in a lot of like knockout upside for Damon Jackson here. I don't know why that was so hard for me to put together, but I'm not worried about the knockout for Damon Jackson really in this one. He's a decent striker, okay power, but I do like the striking more out of Billy Q here, although he is a hittable guy. Both of these guys are, so the activity Billy Q is going to bring here, the pace he puts on, I really like that. He's got okay takedown defense. I do think Damon Jackson will get him down at times, but I don't think he'll be able to hold him down enough to get a decision here. Obviously, he could find the sub with Billy Q trying to work his way back up, but that's, I feel like, the biggest danger from Damon Jackson in this one. I think Billy Q is going to be able to do work on the feet here. I think there's going to be time for Billy Q on the feet, whether he's stuffing a takedown or he gets up from a takedown. And I think Billy Q is going to wear on Damon Jackson as this goes, and I feel like he will be the better striker, like I said, and find a late TKO. I'm thinking close to the over-under. That line, what is it sitting at? Over 2.5 plus 105, under 2.5 minus 135. I think it's going to be pretty close to halfway through that 3rd round, maybe a bit after. But I just think he's going to wear on Damon Jackson and break him and be able to hurt him and find the TKO finish late in that 3rd. I could also see the decision going for Billy Q, but I do think that pace he brings and the volume he brings is going to wear on Damon Jackson. I'm going with Billy Q for the pick. That's the way in which I think he'll get it done. I told you the over-under. Billy Q's money line sitting at minus 175 right now. Not looking too bad if you're on the same side as me. Fight doesn't go the distance, minus 175 as well. Billy Q inside the distance, plus 115. He could get the sub. He is a black belt, and He's got, I want to say 5 submissions on his record. I'm not sure off the top of my head, something like that. It's 5 or 6. I do think that the KO is much more live here for him. I wrote down Billy Q KO, but I didn't put the line for some reason. But like I said, I'm looking for that late knockout, that late finish. I think Billy Q round 2 sitting at plus 425 isn't a bad sprinkle. Or Billy Q round 3 plus 500, not a bad sprinkle. If you have a book near you that has those like multiple decision or multiple paths to victory kind of bets, those are nice. If you can find like Billy Q round 3 / decision, I feel like that's a solid bet. It might be like minus 125, minus 130, but I do think if you're on the same side as me, that does seem like a decent little bet. But yeah, Billy Q, I'm going with him as the pick in this one. It's not my favorite fight to bet on. Those are just the lines. I always write down the lines that kind of may interest me, or you, or people if you're on the same side as me, if you think the fight's going to go the same side as me. They're just bets I'd look at, and I write down as I look at the lines. I'm definitely more interested in that Durden-Hadley fight, though, for example, in this next one. I like this next one. But Billy Q's the pick here. Next up, we've got Jeremiah Wells, Carlston Harris. Wells, 36 years old, 12-2-1, 5'9", 74-inch reach, 5-0 in his last 5, 4-0 in the UFC. His last fight being a split decision victory over Matthew Semelsberger in January of this year. He faced a lot of adversity in that fight, getting dropped twice, once in the first and once in the second, I believe, but a lot of wrestling and a lot of being tough to be able to grit that fight out and get the decision. On the other side, Carlston Harris, 36 years old as well, 18-5, 6 feet tall, 76-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5, 3-1 in the UFC. His last fight being a unanimous decision victory over Jared Gooden in March of this year. I think, I'm surprised how many people are on the Carlston Harris side. He seems to be one of the big dogs of the week. I do think he could find a submission here, and he does have some wild striking and big power. So he could knock Jeremiah Wells out. I feel like that would be more likely than the submission just because of the kind of grappler Jeremiah Wells is himself. But I just favor Wells in this one. I feel like the type of striking Carlston Harris uses, it's super awkward, and the way Wells swings, he'll just be wide open to be hit. I think the hooks will come in hard. We've seen the power Wells has. And I do think one of those hooks lands early. And I feel like the first round knockout is super live here. If he doesn't find it, then I think he gets it done with the wrestling regardless. I think he'll mix it up on the feet. Obviously, Carlston Harris is a good striker, but I do think he'll be able to be taken down by Jeremiah Wells here. The power Wells has, the explosiveness he possesses, and just the wrestling. It's very good from Wells, and I do think he'll be able to find takedowns here if he doesn't find that early knockout. But I do like the look of that early knockout, especially on the lines. The under 2.5 is sitting at minus 175. I do like that because, like I said, Carlston Harris is live here for a knockout, but I just don't see it going that way, to be honest. Wells moneyline minus 127 at the moment. Wells KO TKO plus 225 right now, and Wells round 1 KO plus 650. That's the one I was talking about that I liked here. I'll probably put a little sprinkle on that round 1 KO line for Wells. Wells decision plus 350. I wrote that down as well. I think it's possible if Wells goes straight wrestling, but I really do feel like one of them will get clipped, specifically Carlston Harris. The decision is live though. I do like the wrestling out of what Jesus, that was hard to say. Wrestling out of Wells, but yeah, the main idea here, the main line I'm looking at to bet in this one is that round 1 KO. Just as a sprinkle, it's not going to be a large unit play or anything, but the plus 650 is looking pretty nice. The next two guys are guys that I definitely like a little more betting wise. That, like I said, there was a play here that I liked, but overall betting wise, these next two guys, and a few later down. But the pick here as well is that round 1 knockout isn't looking too bad, and I do think he can mix in the wrestling. Next up, Kyler Phillips versus Raoni Barcelos. Phillips, 28 years old, 10-2, 5'8", 72-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5. His last fight was a round 3 submission victory over Marcelo Rojo in February of last year. He had a little ban, I believe it was for, he's claiming a tainted supplement. Obviously, who knows if he's telling the truth or not. But that's what he's claiming. He was banned for a bit, now he's back. And on the Raoni Barcelos side, he's 36 years old, 17-4, 5'7", 67-inch reach, 2-3 in his last 5. His last fight was not. I don't know why I missed so many things here. I feel like I didn't save as I was going on a few times for this one for some reason. But no, his last fight was the knockout versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Let me pull that up so I can give you the exact round. I believe it was the first, round 1 KO versus Umar Nurmagomedov in January of this year as well. I don't know why I said as well, but in this fight, I think on the feet, it can be pretty competitive. Raoni Barcelos is a really good striker. He's got solid power, and he good Muay Thai, throws solid leg kicks. I think Kyler Phillips is going to be a bit too fast for him at this age. He's 36 years old. He just got knocked out brutally. Like I said, that split decision, especially against Santiago Ponce. I don't know how I missed it, but got knocked out brutally. 2-3 in his last 5. I don't think he's definitely not at his peak anymore. He's definitely on the downslide of his career. And Kyler Phillips, a younger prospect, coming off of a break where he was probably just working the whole time, getting better, and he was already doing that in each of his fights. I think this is a fight where, like I said, on the feet he will be faster. He can mix in the hands with the kicks, and obviously he shoots a lot of takedowns in his fights. He always ends up going towards the wrestling, and I think he will shoot those takedowns. I don't know if he'll be able to get them. Obviously, you see that takedown percentage, that takedown defense percentage for Raoni Barcelos right there, 93%. I do know that's correct. So I don't know if he'll be able to get these takedowns, but it will most likely push Barcelos up against the cage, and I think maybe Kyler Phillips is able to hold it there for a bit of time, or just continue to try and work that takedown. And so it's in that position where Kyler Phillips is being the offensive one, and Barcelos is just defending takedowns. But then they'll separate again, and Kyler Phillips, like I said, will go back to being the faster guy on the feet. I think he'll be able to land shots everywhere, mix in those kicks, like I said. And I think he'll get a decision here. I mean, it's really hard to say, to be honest, how Barcelos' chin is going to look. I know a lot of people, it's pretty split. Some people are like, man, he got knocked out brutally. He's 36 years old, and it was earlier this year, so who knows how he's going to come back. And then some people are like, you're overreacting. That was his first knockout of his career. Why do you think his chin's going to be bad? Blah, blah, blah. So it is pretty split on Twitter. I've seen people go on both sides. I do tend to think that this fight goes to decision. I'm not saying Barcelos' chin is or isn't ruined, but I just feel like this is definitely the type of fight that could go to decision here. And I feel like Kyler Phillips will find the unanimous decision most likely. Although Barcelos is a good striker and he could make this interesting. But I think the speed of Phillips will be too much. The over 2.5 is sitting at -160. The under 2.5 sitting at +130. Because of that question about the durability of Barcelos being 36 and just getting knocked out pretty bad with one shot by somebody who's really not known for his knockouts in Umar Nurmagomedov. So I probably won't touch that over-under line. The Phillips money line sitting at -212. He's somebody I will probably be looking to parlay just because of that speed advantage, the age, the questions about. I mean, I explained to you guys why I think Phillips is going to win already. I don't have to keep saying it, but yeah, that Phillips money line is probably something I'll be looking to parlay. Phillips decision plus 165. Again, because of the durability questions, I'm probably going to leave that alone. And then I wrote down the KO line as well. Kyler Phillips KO is sitting at plus 300. Again, I'm leaving that alone. I'm just looking at the money line here. It is sitting at minus 212 currently. But yeah, probably going to be in a 2-man parlay or something like that. Next up, another guy who I do like as a parlay piece here, Ignacio Bahamondes versus Ludovic Klein. Bahamondes, 25 years old, 14-4, 6'3", 75.5-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5. So he's got a win on Contender Series and then I believe 3. I don't know why I just wrote 1 win. I'm messing up on the graphics here. He's got a win on Contender Series and then he's 3-1 in the UFC. His last fight was that unanimous decision victory over Trey Ogden, where he just was able to strike pretty easily to a decision. He was never really in any danger, and never really overexerted himself to find a finish either. Ludovic Klein on the other side, 28 years old, 19-4-1, 5'7", so there's a big height advantage here for Ignacio Bahamondes. One of the big reasons I like him a lot. 72.5-inch reach for Ludovic Klein. Reach advantage as well for Bahamondes, and with that height advantage, it'll feel all that more. I know he has a leg reach advantage, so for kicking those teeps he throws, he'll be able to find it from long range. He mixes them in well. 2-1 in his last 5 for Ludovic Klein. Back to him, and his last fight was a draw versus Jai Herbert in March of this year, where Jai Herbert was probably going to go on and win, but he got a point taken away for grabbing the fence, I do believe. In this one, like I said, you can probably tell by how I was laying it out, I do favor Ignacio Bahamondes here. We've seen Klein struggle with taller strikers in Jai Herbert. Trezano was a taller guy than him. Let me pull up his... Were there any other super tall guys he struggled with? No. But yeah, Trezano he lost to unanimous decision, and Herbert, I feel like he was probably going to lose that one, but then he got the point taken away, so it ends up as a draw. So he struggles with taller strikers. This is the tallest of them, and a young up-and-comer who's looked great recently. He's so talented on the feet. And obviously Ludovic Klein is probably going to look to mix in the wrestling here as well, but I feel like with the height and Bahamondes having decent takedown defense himself, it could be a struggle for Ludovic Klein to mix that in. And then on the feet, like I said, I feel like he's going to be able to land kicks at range. He's going to get that jab working from range. He throws long combinations. I think he'll use that range really well in this fight. And this is another one where I think it goes to decision, but there is always the possibility of a KO with Ignacio Bahamondes fighting, and also Ludovic Klein, a solid KO artist himself, having 8 knockouts. So yeah, I do favor the decision, but this is another one where I like the money line here. The over 2.5 sitting at minus 145, under 2.5 plus 115. Like I said, I've got questions about the means and how he'll get the fight done, whether he finds the knockout at some point or if it ends up being a decision. I slightly lean decision, like I've said before. That money line for Bahamondes sitting at minus 225. That's one I'll look to parlay. It could be a solid piece with Kyler Phillips, maybe, you never know, or it could be a straight play as well. There are some other guys I like on here that we'll get to, but Bahamondes and Phillips are 2 guys I do like on this card. That decision line is plus 150 and Bahamondes KO plus 350. Maybe a little play on that decision line because Ludovic Klein is a good striker himself, so I think he'll be able to manage and most likely not get slept. But yeah, Ignacio Bahamondes is definitely the pick here. I like him a lot in this spot. A prospect that I think can get a good name on his resume and continue to push on. Next up, Tanner Boser versus Alexa Kammer. This is one this doesn't happen a lot with me in fights. There are like I'll watch any fight. I'll turn on fights from Octagon and these obscure promotions, like Hispanic promotions or European promotions that aren't big, or I'll watch random Muay Thai fights and I'll be excited for fights. And even these UFC ones, I'll sit down and watch a full card start to finish most of the time, all of them. This fight does not excite me at all. Um, and it may because Alexa Kammer looked good early. He was an exciting prospect. He had that big flying knee knockout on Contender Series, and then he won his first UFC fight. But he lost his next two. He hasn't fought in so long. It's hard to be excited. Obviously, he's still young, and he's taken, it's 2 years off now, just over 2 years. So he had a bit of an injury problem, a nerve. I'm not even reading the stats for this one. I'm just talking. He had a bit of a nerve issue in his hand, I believe, so he took some time off, and I believe he was just working up his skills as well, getting better. And then Boser moving down to 205 from heavyweight. He lost to Cutelaba. Cutelaba was able to work his wrestling and then land some big shots from the wrestling and hurt Tanner Boser, end up getting him out of there. Boser protested it, but I thought it was a fine stoppage. In this one, like I said, not excited. I don't have too much to say on it. I don't think Boser is great. Obviously, he was a really quick heavyweight. He moved really well. He moved weight classes for a reason as well. It wasn't going too well for him. He loses his first fight here. I'm going to pick Alexa Kammer and hope he's a young guy. He's gone away and gotten better in this time off after dealing with that injury. He was a great boxer beforehand. He's had some nice finishes. Obviously not against the best competition, but yeah, I'm banking on the younger guy being away for a while. There's different types, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. It'll come up specifically in the next fight with Gavin Tucker. An older guy being away from 2 years is so much different from a 27-year-old being away for 2 years. With the older guy, you're worried about him not fighting for so long, and why was he away if he's this old? Was he retired? Is he making a comeback? Is he injured at this age? There's a lot of things. Obviously, you don't want to see guys get injured and be young, but more chance of recovery. And when they're young, they're always improving. I think the older you get, the more difficult it is to become better as a fighter. Obviously, you can sharpen skills, make skills better, but it's hard to add tools to the toolbox, I think. And at 27 years old, being away for that time, I'm banking on Kammer getting better. So I'm going to pick Kammer to win a striking battle back and forth here. I'm going to say a decision. Yeah, I'm not touching this fight betting-wise. I'm just going to watch, even though, like I said, I'm not very excited for this one. Next up, one I am very excited for because of Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes versus Gavin Tucker. Lopes, 28 years old, 21-6, 5'11", 72.5-inch reach, 2-3 in his last 5. With a loss on Contender Series. I can't remember who that was against. I should have written that down. Let me pull it up real quick. But a loss on Contender Series, and he's 0-1 in the UFC. That one in the UFC being a really short notice unanimous decision loss versus Movsar Evloev. So his UFC debut on short notice, getting tossed in versus an undefeated, ranked, up-and-coming prospect. So obviously that's a really tough situation. And man, did he make it exciting. He made it close. He looked dangerous on the ground, on the feet. He put Movsar in danger everywhere. He made the decision tough. And it was, in a losing effort on short notice versus who he fought, a very good showing. That loss in Contender Series, by the way, was to Joe Anderson Brito. So I am very excited for Lopes. He swings wild on the feet. He is hittable, but he seems to have a solid chin. Has he been KO'd before? Twice he has, but he was taking shots from Movsar. Well, obviously Movsar's not a big striker, so we'll see how he does versus a bigger power puncher at some point. Obviously here, Gavin Tucker has pretty big power himself. Not like a knockout artist or anything, but he's got solid power in his hands. but a guy where I think he will be able to take the strikes. And like I said, big power in his hands, swings wild, big hooks, and 11 submissions, never been submitted. He's a very dangerous grappler. Obviously, the takedown defense isn't his specialty, and maybe not the best wrestler, but he is Alexa Grasso's jiu-jitsu coach. His jiu-jitsu is elite. He can make it dangerous for anyone on the ground, which is obviously where Gavin Tucker's going to want this fight. I talked about it a little bit. Gavin Tucker got brutally knocked out by Dan Ige. You can see there. Oh, I didn't even read out his stats. 37 years old, 13-2, 5'6", 66-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight being that round 1, 22-second round 1 KO versus Dan Ige 2 years ago, March of 21. So it's that big long layoff. He was also Kammer. He was laid off for an injury at first, and obviously that big knockout, and then he took a bit more time off, and he pulled out of a few fights. I believe it was also for injuries, which isn't great. He's 37 years old. Taking that kind of time off worries me, and he just got knocked out brutally. Who knows how that chin is at this age. I think he's going to go for takedowns here. Diego Lopes can make it rough for him on the ground, obviously. Gavin Tucker, never been submitted and a great grappler himself. So maybe it's tough for Lopes to find the finish, but I think he can make it really tough for Gavin Tucker to find enough control time to win this fight on the ground. He'll be able to get up, threatening submissions and stuff. And then on the feet, Gavin Tucker is a solid striker himself, but I think he's obviously a guy that can be hit. You can see the striking differential there. It's just barely positive. He eats almost as many shots as he dishes out, and I think against a big, wild puncher with power like Diego Lopes has, he can make Gavin Tucker pay at some point on the feet. I do think he finds the finish here against the older guy who's taken a lot of time off. I like him in this spot a lot. And like I said, I think even if he doesn't find the finish, he makes it tough for Gavin Tucker to find enough control time to win this fight. And I think he'll have big enough moments to be able to steal rounds, at least 2, if not all 3 of them, if he doesn't find the finish, which I think he does. The under 2.5 sitting at minus 120. He, as a money line right now, is minus 177. Lopes inside the distance, plus 135. Lopes KO, plus 400. Lopes sub, plus 225. So, obviously, the books think he's more likely to get a submission. And it's definitely possible there could be a club and sub type deal here. Obviously, he's never been submitted, Gavin Tucker, so it'll be hard to submit him from the bottom, although Lopes is an elite grappler himself. So I think, there's some interesting lines there. I do like that Lopes money line for sure. I do have a spot on him straight up, and I don't know if I'll throw him in a parlay just because I have a spot on him straight up, but I do think if you're putting together like a 2 or 3 person parlay, I do think he is a solid piece and he can find the win here in a few different ways versus the older Gavin Tucker. Diego Lopes is the pick here, and like I said, there are a few bets I do not mind here. Next up, Dustin Jacoby versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. I love both of these guys. I've bet on both of them in most of their fights. They've done well for me, obviously. Not this last time for Dustin Jacoby. I can't remember if I bet on him versus Azamat or not. I want to say I did, but I can't 100% remember. Regardless, Jacoby, 35 years old, 18, 7-1, 6'3", 76-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight being that unanimous decision loss versus Azamat Murzakanov in April of this year, where he did eat some big shots. Kennedy Nzechukwu, 31 years old, 12-3, 6'5", 83-inch reach, 32. I'm mixing things up today. 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight being a round 2 submission win versus Devin Clark in May this year. It was a really good performance there. He had a good performance versus Carl Roberson, a performance where he was in some sticky situations versus Ion Cutelaba wrestling-wise. He was able to get out of them, and then on the feet make him pay and find the knockout. Dustin Jacoby, obviously, we know him for his really steady kickboxing. He's a big, tall, long guy, throws great kicks. He's got really good volume, and he's going to put forward pressure on you. He's got great cardio. Nzechukwu is normally a guy who he'll drop the first round if he doesn't finish you in the first round, but he builds as the fight goes on. He's got great cardio, great striker from the outside. He's kind of introduced a new wrinkle into his game in these past couple fights, doing a little bit of grappling himself, and we know he can find good submissions if you are trying to grapple against him. Obviously, Dustin Jacoby's not going to shoot takedowns, so he's not going to snatch up a guillotine off Jacoby shooting a takedown. That's most likely not a possibility, but he is becoming dangerous in that area. This is one where I think, and I feel like a lot of people see it this way. Jacoby is a great steady fighter. Obviously, we know he can win that round one if Kennedy fights how he typically does. And I think Jacoby can be winning this fight until he isn't. I think we've seen Jacoby get hit before. He obviously doesn't get through all his fights without getting hit. You see that striking differential. It is positive, but he gets hit with 4 strikes a minute, significant strikes. Kennedy is a very talented striker. He's got a big reach advantage, which normally Jacoby does not have to fight against a reach advantage, let alone it being this big or a taller man, typically 6'5". So it's a new challenge for Jacoby. Obviously, he's kickboxed and he has a lot of fights, so he's probably fought other big guys before, but it's not typical for him at his size. And I think Kennedy will land big shots at some point throughout this fight. Maybe he mixes in the wrestling. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see how that fold in his game progresses. But I do think Kennedy is able to get his striking going, no matter how long it takes him to get into this fight. And he'll have big moments whether he's finding the finish or not. And I think he can mix in that wrestling. He's a really big guy. Jacoby has good takedown defense, and we've seen him be able to get up from takedowns before. I've bet on Jacoby countless times because of that ability. And I think with the size and strength and power Nzechukwu possesses, if he works at it and training a lot and trains it a lot, that could become a good part of his game that he can mix in, especially with how good his cardio is. Obviously, he'll have to work that type of cardio, but in general, he has pretty solid cardio. Bet-wise, I'm not going to bet here because I do also think there's a world where Nzechukwu is able to land big shots and it's at a lesser frequency than Dustin Jacoby, but Jacoby's able to kind of power through and the volume will win out for Dustin Jacoby. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I do favor Kennedy and Nzechukwu here, but it's not the way I talked about it. You'd think I was super confident in it, but it's not an overly confident pick for me here. Dustin Jacoby, like I said, he's a very, very talented kickboxer, and this second streak in the UFC has been great for him. So I do think there's a world where he just outvolumes Kennedy to a decision, and Kennedy's not able to land those big shots. But pick-wise, and that's just for bet-wise. I'm staying away betting-wise for that reason, because I do see that as a solid possibility for Dustin Jacoby. But pick-wise, I like what Kennedy and Nzechukwu does, and I think he will land the shots. So I'm going with him pick-wise. Next up, co-main event, Jessica Andrade versus Tatiana Suarez. I'm really excited to see Tatiana Suarez back at the top. She took a lot of time off. She's been injury-prone. And it'll be interesting to see her versus Jessica Andrade because Andrade, as we know, she's done it versus everyone in 3 weight classes. She's been a champion. She's fought the best. She's elite. This is a great test for Suarez after being out for this long and running over Montana De La Rosa. But Andrade, 31 years old, 29-11, 5'1", 62-inch reach, 30. I keep saying 32 here. 3-2 in her last 5. Her last fight was a round 1 KO TKO loss versus Xiaonan Yan in May of this year. So, not taking a long time off after getting round 1 knocked out, just 2 months ago. So I mean, obviously, Tatiana Suarez isn't a big striker, so Jessica Andrade isn't overly worried about a knockout here, but who knows how that affects her with ground and pound from Suarez. But Suarez, 32 years old, undefeated, 10-0, 5'5", 66-inch reach, 5-0 in her last 5. Obviously, she's undefeated. In her last victory, which was her comeback from that long layoff, she got a round 2 submission victory over Montana De La Rosa in February of this year. This is an interesting fight. I do like the odds favor Tatiana Suarez, but I think the odds are juiced. They are huge. Obviously it's because of people betting her, but I think the line would be fair around minus 200, I'd say. If Andrade can keep this on the feet, or when it's on the feet have big moments, she's obviously the much better striker than Tatiana Suarez, and she has huge power. She can knock any girl out. That's always the threat here. But we've seen Andrade get taken down before. Obviously, historically, she has a pretty decent takedown defense, but versus the top-tier grapplers, Valentina Shevchenko was able to do work versus her on the ground, get her out of there in a crucifix. Blanchfield, able to outstrike Andrade. It was on short notice, but on the feet was able to outstrike Andrade and then take her down and submit her. So, versus the elite grapplers, she tends to struggle, but overall, good takedown defense. Tatiana Suarez is that elite wrestler, and I do see Andrade struggling with that over 3 rounds. I think Tatiana Suarez will be able to win minutes on the ground here. Whether she finds the finish or not, I'm not sure, but I do think she will win this fight with her wrestling. Like I said, I do think the line is a little crazy. Respect to Jessica Andrade. She deserves some respect here, but the pick with the wrestling is Tatiana Suarez. Betting wise, I'm definitely staying away. Like I said, that money line is juiced, and Suarez inside the distance, which I know a lot of people were looking to take that angle. At this point, it's minus 165. There's no point. I do think, if anything, Suarez decision at plus 275 isn't an awful play. Andrade, an experienced fighter herself, so there is always a world where even if Tatiana Suarez is getting takedowns, she's able to drag this fight out and it go to decision. So maybe that's not a bad play, Tatiana Suarez decision. I will just be staying away in general. Next up, we get to the main event. Cory Sandhagen, Rob Font. Sandhagen, 31 years old, 16-4, 5'11", 70-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight somehow being a split decision victory over Chito Vera in March of this year. That was the easiest 50-45, 5-0 for Cory Sandhagen ever. Cory Sandhagen won every round of that fight. Maybe you give one to Chito, but I don't know how on earth the judge that did ended up giving Chito Vera 3 rounds of that fight. That made 0 sense whatsoever. But it is what it is. Rightfully, Cory got that decision in the end. 2 judges. One of them had it 50-45, I believe, and one of them had it 49. That would be 49-46. So those 2 guys got it right. The other guy dreadfully wrong. Rob Font, 36 years old, 20-6, 5'8", 71.5-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight being a round 1 knockout victory versus Adrian Yanez in April of this year. And that was a great victory by him, with people asking questions of his durability and the power that Yanez possesses. But Rob Font was a class above on that night and knocked out Yanez in spectacular fashion. It was awesome to see. A great comeback for Rob Font. I even picked Adrian Yanez in that fight. It was me questioning the durability, but yeah, great performance from Rob Font. It was pretty sick to see. In this fight, though, on short notice, it is a tough ask. Cory Sandhagen is also a step above Adrian Yanez, I believe. Cory Sandhagen with a phenomenal performance that deserved a unanimous decision against Chito Vera. Complete dominance. He has continued to get better. His striking is obviously great. He's a little, I don't even want to call it like awkward, goofy striking, because he's just a creative striker. He's got some some different type of movement. It's really bouncy in and out. He's light on his feet, so that's what makes it awkward for the other guys. But he's a really creative striker. Great kicks. Works well to the body and to the head. He's a volume striker at its finest. You can see almost landing six significant strikes per minute, with a +2 significant striking differential. And recently, kind of starting in that Song Yadong fight, we've seen him work in takedowns a little bit more. And even if he's shooting these takedowns, they're not always to take you down. It is just to make sure you're worried about that now, so you're not only thinking about how is Cory going to strike next. And it's great. He's able to land some takedowns, and a lot of them are just for distractions and setting up more striking. So it is a cool wrinkle to see he's added to his game, always leveling up. And versus Rob Font, obviously Rob Font is an elite boxer. His jab is one of the best jabs in the UFC, but at this point he is a bit one-dimensional, and I feel like I just don't see his jab over 5 rounds being enough. His boxing, just the boxing, being enough to beat Cory Sandhagen. I think Cory Sandhagen's going to throw a lot of kicks. He's going to move a lot, and Rob Font is going to struggle to land that spectacular jab with how Cory Sandhagen moves. I think Cory Sandhagen's going to make you think about the takedowns. He's going to go to the body. He's going to go to the head. Those kicks are going to be coming, like I said. And I love Cory Sandhagen in this fight. I think he's just going to outpace Rob Font. I think a late finish is live. Rob Font wears damage horribly, and I didn't even say it, Cory Sandhagen in close throws sick elbows that slice people open that you don't even see. It's awesome to watch. And yeah, like I said, Rob Font wears damage horribly, and I think the longer this fight goes, Cory Sandhagen can continue to land shots, sneak in elbows here and there, and really bust up Rob Font, possibly finding that late finish. But I do think decision is most likely here. The over 4.5 is sitting at -105. I will not be playing maybe if I could get like an over 3.5, I would play it, because I do think if Sandhagen finds a finish, it is late 3. And I think even that would be a bit early. I would think it's most likely 4 or 5. So I do think there's a chance the under 4.5 hits, but I also think it could really go to decision as well. So staying away from the over-under here. Sandhagen moneyline currently at -350. I don't think it's bad for parlays at all. I really, just with how one-dimensional Rob Font is and how well Cory Sandhagen can use all of the striking arsenal he has, and he's starting to mix in takedowns. Even if he's not landing, I'm just mixing them in. I think he can cause a lot of problems for Rob Font, so I think that's a good, and I keep saying it, but on short notice as well. Yeah, great parlay piece, I believe. Sandhagen decision sitting at +205, and I was talking about it earlier with that, who was it for? Let me pull it up, that Billy Quarantillo line. If you can find that round 3 decision line, that's great. Same kind of deal here. For 5-round fights, a lot of the time, if your book has that type of line, you can find a 4-5 decision line. So if you can find a Cory Sandhagen round 4 finish, round 5 finish decision line, that would be beautiful. It'll probably be, I would assume, maybe you could find it for +100, but you'll probably be looking at it like -115. Nah, maybe even bigger. I don't even know. I didn't see any lines with it, and it's not on Best Fight Odds or FightOdds.io. It's not on any of those. I didn't see it, at least. But if you can find that line, that is a great line. And yeah, Sandhagen is the easy pick. I don't want to say easy, because that's disrespectful to Rob Font. Sandhagen is a confident pick from here. I like him a lot. And that is all of the UFC Nashville card, banger card. Now we've got the Savage Rounds parlay. I just realized again I forgot to make it so it doesn't show you right away, but you're going to see it immediately anyway. We've got Ignacio Bahamondes and Diego Lopes, 2 of the lines I talked about that I liked. Another one was Kyler Phillips. Also, I do think Cory Sandhagen could have been one here, and I think those 4 guys are definitely the 4 I like the most in this card, betting wise. We're 12-9 on the year for Savage Rounds parlay, plus almost 3.5 units. We're on a 1-win streak. Last week we got back in the win column. We're chasing that 5-win streak. But yeah, I think this is a solid parlay this week. I like it a lot. Bahamondes, that height, the height is dangerous. How technical he is, how quick he is, and Ludovic Klein's gonna be looking to mix in the takedowns. I don't think he finds them here. And I talked about both these guys, man. Diego Lopes, I think, is gonna find that finish. If not, I think he has enough big moments to get the decision. 2 good spots here. Parlay him for plus 126. Let's keep the Savage Rounds parlay rolling. Drop a like on this video, subscribe if you haven't seen the other 2 videos this week. Go check them out. And then next week, same thing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday uploads. Peace out. See you guys next week.